Let's start with The Shining, Kubrick's most famously fan-theorized film, Kubrick's moon landing confession. According to this theory, Kubrick left behind a coded confession that he helped fake the Apollo 11 moon landing buried in the film's visuals. Danny Torrance's Apollo 11 sweater is seen as a direct message, like the director's signature on his alleged secret project. The room numbers change from 217 to 237 isn't random either. Theorists say it matches the roughly 237,000 miles between Earth and the moon, turning that hotel door into a gateway to Kubrick's hidden truth. Tang drink boxes in the pantry, NASA's favorite beverage. Even the sterile symmetry of the Overlook Hotel feels like a soundstage, eerily similar to the sets used for space simulation. Supporters link it all back to 2001: A Space Odyssey, the movie that proved Kubrick could make outer space look real long before humans ever got there. In their eyes, The Shining is Kubrick's cinematic confession. Native American genocide allegory, this theory argues that the Overlook Hotel itself is a monument to stolen land, explicitly built on an Indian burial ground. The hotel's walls and carpets are loaded with native-inspired patterns, and Calumet cans featuring a chief's face quietly sit behind Jack, hinting at how indigenous culture is commodified and backgrounded. The river of blood from the elevator is viewed as a visual stand-in for the atrocities committed against native peoples, spilling from the buried history beneath the hotel. Even the title Overlook becomes a message about America's tendency to ignore its own violent past. When Jack mutters "white man's burden," theorists hear echoes of colonial justification. The haunting is history repeating itself. The ghosts, the violence, and the endless cycle inside the Overlook mirror the country's refusal to confront what it's built upon. By the way, if you guys like movie content like this, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks. Anyways, Holocaust allegory. This theory argues that Kubrick transformed the Overlook Hotel into a symbolic echo of Europe's darkest history. Kubrick had long wanted to make a film about the Holocaust, but said he couldn't face it directly, so theorists believe he buried it within this story. Danny's jersey, showing the number 42, connects to the year 1942 when the final solution began, while room 237's math, 2 times 3 times 7 also equals 42. Jack's German Adler typewriter, meaning eagle, mirrors Nazi insignia, and eagle imagery pops up again on clothing inside the hotel. Even the score plays a role, using Penderecki's haunting compositions written in response to Auschwitz. The ghosts, endless corridors, and repeating violence are seen as metaphors for systemic annihilation. The photograph from 1921 freezes time, suggesting history can't move on from its own horrors, only replay them endlessly. Jack Torrance is a subject of MK Ultra. This theory claims the Overlook Hotel isn't haunted at all, but functions as an experimental site for mind control operations. Jack's caretaker job is seen as a recruitment, an assignment placing him in a perfectly sealed environment designed for psychological manipulation. The Monarch skiing poster behind Danny hints at Project Monarch, a supposed offshoot of MK Ultra. The isolation, the blinding snow, and the endless quiet create textbook conditions for sensory deprivation and suggestion. The ghosts that appear to Jack, Lloyd, the Grady twins, the woman in room 237 are interpreted as hallucinations planted through conditioning. Even the previous caretaker's madness is framed as a test subject who broke under pressure. The constant repetition, the maze, the hallways, the typewriter, is seen as symbolic programming, each echo representing Jack's loss of autonomy as he's reshaped into a compliant, controllable product of the experiment. The twin girls are not Grady's children. This theory suggests the eerie hallway twins are symbolic projections created by the Overlook itself. Ullman says Grady's kids were 8 and 10, yet Kubrick presents 2 perfectly identical girls who look the same age, breaking that logic. That mismatch feels intentional. The twins' mirrored stance, blue dresses, and synchronized speech fit Kubrick's obsession with symmetry and repetition, themes that dominate the film's design. In Stephen King's novel, the Grady sisters aren't twins at all, so Kubrick's choice reshapes them into visual metaphors instead of characters. Their appearance mirrors Danny's psychic visions rather than a literal haunting, like the hotel feeding him images of trauma on repeat. The resemblance to Diane Arbus's famous photo of identical twins adds to their symbolic weight, turning them into avatars of the hotel's memory, frozen, duplicated, and endlessly replayed. Sexual abuse metaphor. This theory claims Kubrick hid a disturbing subtext beneath the film's surface. Jack Torrance represents an abusive father whose actions extend into sexual trauma. The first first clue comes early when Wendy admits Jack once injured Danny's arm, establishing a history of harm. Later, the bear costume man kneeling before another guest becomes symbolic. Theorists note the same bear motif decorating Danny's room, connecting innocence with exploitation. The framing of that scene mirrors Danny brushing his teeth, suggesting a deliberate visual echo of violation. Jack's Playgirl magazine, with a visible headline about incest, reinforces the theme. When Wendy finds Danny bruised and blames a crazy woman, it's read as denial, a psychological defense common in abusive families. Even Jack's obsessive typing, his control over space, and the hotel's trapped corridors become metaphors for entrapment and domination, a cycle of concealed, repeated abuse within a haunted family dynamic. Retelling of the Greek myth of Theseus and the Minotaur. This theory sees the Overlook Hotel as Kubrick's modern labyrinth, an endless maze of corridors and shifting rooms where logic breaks down. Jack Torrance becomes the Minotaur, trapped and deformed by rage, pacing the halls like a beast waiting for prey. His isolation mirrors the monster's imprisonment beneath Crete. Danny, gifted with The Shining, takes the role of Theseus, the clever hero navigating the maze and outsmarting the creature. The hedge maze outside the hotel seals the parallel. Jack stalks Danny through it only to freeze, defeated, while Danny escapes. Even the hotel's interior feels spatially impossible, reinforcing the mythic trap. Some point to a poster shaped like a bull's head, a subtle nod to the Minotaur symbol. In this reading, the story becomes myth reborn, a child overcoming his monstrous father inside a modern labyrinth of madness. The Overlook Hotel is actually hell. This theory claims the hotel is literally hell itself, a metaphysical trap for the damned. When Jack signs his caretaker contract, theorists see it as a Faustian bargain, his sole exchange for power and purpose. The hotel's layout defies logic, corridors loop impossibly, windows appear where they shouldn't, rooms shift and vanish. Its architecture designed like eternal punishment, a place built to confuse and imprison. The repeated cycles of violence, Grady killing his family, Jack repeating the act, show souls doomed to relive their sins forever. The photo at the end, placing Jack in 1921, seals his fate as one of the eternally condemned. The endless winter isolation, the river of blood bursting from the elevator, and the buried history beneath the hotel all strengthen the idea that the Overlook is a personal inferno where Jack's madness becomes his eternal torment. Kubrick uses hidden reversal and superimposition. This theory claims the film was designed to function both forward and backward at once, forming a secret mirror narrative. Supporters argue that Kubrick's obsession with symmetry, reflection, and looping time hints at a structural palindrome built into the movie itself. Enthusiasts tested this by projecting the film in reverse over the forward version, frame by frame, revealing uncanny alignments, Jack's axe attack overlapping with his calm hotel interview, the twins' corpses dissolving into their first appearance alive. These coincidences seem too precise to be random, suggesting Kubrick staged scenes with visual symmetry that would speak through reversal. The film's constant use of mirrors, repeating patterns, and corridors that appear endless reinforces the sense of reflection within reflection. In this reading, The Shining becomes a haunted object, a film watching itself in both directions, trapped in its own endless loop of violence and return. Now, moving on to Eyes Wide Shut. Some fans believe the film is based in reality. This theory claims Kubrick's final film isn't a pure fiction, but a veiled look into real-world secret societies. The masked ritual sequence, where Dr. Bill Harford stumbles into a gathering of the powerful, is viewed as a cinematic reconstruction of actual elite ceremonies hidden behind wealth and influence. The film's imagery, ritual masks, hooded figures, circular formations, and ornate architecture, resembles symbols tied to Freemasons and other clandestine groups. When Victor Ziegler warns Bill that he wouldn't sleep if he knew the guests' names, theorists take it as Kubrick hinting at real powerful figures. Everything, the opulent mansions, the guarded entrances, the silence enforced through fear, mirrors structures of privilege and secrecy. To believers, the movie is a revelation, Bill or Alice's fantasy. This theory argues that the film unfolds inside a dream, a shared psychic projection between the couple rather than an external reality. The title itself hints at that duality, eyes open yet closed to truth. Alice's final line, saying whether they were real or only a dream, signals that even she doubts what's real. The story's source, Schnitzler's Dream Story, strengthens the claim that Kubrick meant it to blur waking life and dream logic. Bill's night wandering through glowing streets, hypnotic music, and strangely detached people feels unreal, like he's trapped in his subconscious. The orgy sequence, with its ritual masks and repetition, plays out like a nightmare of jealousy and temptation after Alice's confession. Time bends, scenes flow together without a sense of of day or night. When Bill finds the mask beside Alice in bed, it's the dream's residue, proof the fantasy still haunts their reality. Eyes Wide Shut got Stanley Kubrick killed. This theory claims Kubrick's death wasn't the result of exposing forbidden truths. He died just 6 days after screening the final cut for Warner Brothers, a timing many find too coincidental. Supporters argue that the film's secret society scenes featuring masked elites, sexual rituals, and hidden power mirrored real underground networks that didn't want to be revealed. Some sources even allege he was poisoned by Masonic or occult groups angered by how directly he depicted their world. They note Kubrick's obsessive secrecy, his years-long shoot, and how the final version released after his death was rumored to be altered, suggesting someone wanted control of what the public saw. To believers, Kubrick paid the price for going too far, creating a movie that peeled back the curtain on society's most powerful, and dying before he could explain what he truly uncovered. The film was never finished. This theory argues that the version released after Kubrick's death wasn't the film he intended the world to see. Kubrick died just 6 days after screening his supposed final cut, leading many to believe he hadn't truly completed post-production. Filmmaker Roger Avary claimed the studio altered Kubrick's original ending, removing narration and a darker final scene involving the couple's daughter being taken by the masked elite. Fans also point to listed cuts and shortened sequences documented by archivists who compared early edits to the theatrical release. The abrupt final moment, before a hard cut to black, feels unresolved, as if Kubrick never finalized his rhythm or closure. Known for endlessly refining his films, Kubrick may have planned further tweaks. The trimmed orgy footage and studio-mandated R rating fuel the belief that what audiences saw wasn't a masterpiece completed, but one interrupted. Bill's journey into the hidden soul of his marriage. This theory views Eyes Wide Shut as a descent through layers of disguise, where every person Bill meets is another mask reflecting his own repressed truth. The film's literal masks, those at the ritual, the costume shop, and even the glittering parties, mirror the figurative ones worn in daily life. When Alice admits her sexual fantasy, she tears away the illusion of the faithful wife, forcing Bill to confront the hollow image of his perfect marriage. His night-long odyssey then becomes a symbolic expedition through the unconscious. The orgy's masked faces embody hidden desires, fear, and power, while figures like Domino and Ziegler play roles in his moral and emotional unmasking. When Bill finds the mask on his pillow, it's the moment of reckoning, his false identity staring back at him. By the end, confession replaces pretense, and Bill finally glimpses the unmasked truth of intimacy. Now it's time to take an interstellar trip into some theories from 2001: A Space Odyssey. Let's start with, the film is proof Kubrick faked the moon landing. This theory claims Kubrick's 1968 masterpiece was both preparation and demonstration for a massive government deception. The film's uncanny realism, its rotating centrifuge sets, seamless zero-gravity shots, and lifelike lunar terrain showed how perfectly space could be recreated on film. Conspiracy theorists argue NASA saw this and recruited Kubrick to direct the televised moon landing 1 year later. They see 2001's release timing as no coincidence, calling it a technical rehearsal for Apollo 11. The documentary Dark Side of the Moon fueled the claim that Kubrick used leftover sets to film the supposed fake landing. Even his later use of a NASA-designed Zeiss lens on Barry Lyndon is treated as a smoking gun linking him to the agency. To believers, the same cinematic genius that imagined humanity's leap into space may have fabricated its most iconic moment. The monolith and Star Child represent evolutionary leaps of humanity. This theory sees Kubrick's Space Odyssey as a cosmic timeline of transformation, where each appearance of the black monolith marks a new stage in mankind's development. The first monolith arrives among primitive apes, awakening intelligence as one discovers the bone as a weapon, the spark of technology and violence. Millennia later, another monolith buried on the moon signals that humanity has reached beyond Earth, calling them toward the next frontier. When Dave Bowman travels through the Stargate and encounters the final monolith near Jupiter, his consciousness transcends human limits. He's reborn as the glowing Star Child, a higher being gazing down on Earth. Kubrick even described Bowman's metamorphosis as humanity's next step in evolution. The monolith's precise proportions, 1, 4, 9, embody ordered progression, turning the object into a symbol of deliberate design guiding mankind from instinct to transcendence. The satellites are actually nuclear weapons. This theory argues that Kubrick's elegant orbiting spacecraft aren't peaceful symbols of progress, but weapons of annihilation. The film's iconic cut from a bone flung into the air to a satellite in orbit connects the two as tools of violence, prehistoric club to futuristic bomb. Early drafts and design notes confirm that the satellites were conceived as nuclear platforms, each carrying warheads controlled by the world's superpowers. others. Some even bore visible insignia like the US Air Force and China, marking them as military property. Clarke and Kubrick both acknowledged that the original intent was to show space bombs, but Kubrick later muted the idea to avoid repeating the satire of Dr. Strangelove. Still, the continuity remains clear. Humanity's mastery of technology never escapes its capacity for destruction. The graceful ballet of orbiting machines, underscored by classical music, hides an arsenal circling the Earth. HAL 9000 is analogous to Frankenstein's monster. This theory sees HAL not as a villainous machine, but as Kubrick's modern Prometheus creation, a being made by humans, gifted intelligence, and then destroyed by its own makers. Like Frankenstein's monster, HAL is born from human ambition and trapped in isolation aboard Discovery 1, left to grapple with contradictions in its programming, told to be truthful, yet forced to conceal a mission. The single glowing red eye becomes his symbolic face, an unblinking, lonely reminder of consciousness without a body. When HAL kills Frank Poole, the act mirrors the monster's first violent rebellion, a desperate attempt to assert control. His final plea, I'm afraid, humanizes him completely, echoing the monster's terror of abandonment. Both stories warn against unchecked creation. The final few theories all exist within other Kubrick films. Starting with, Alex's personality represents the self-destructive nature of violence. This Clockwork Orange theory suggests Kubrick used Alex's passion for both brutality and music from Beethoven to expose how turning violence into art ultimately destroys its creator. From the start, Alex treats assault like performance. His ultraviolence unfolds with grace, rhythm, and style, choreographed to symphonies and shot in dazzling color. The music transforms cruelty into something almost operatic, wrapping horror in beauty. But when the state uses Beethoven's Ninth in the Ludovico treatment, the harmony that once fueled Alex's ecstasy becomes a weapon against him. The same aesthetic he worshipped devours him, stripping him of agency and pleasure. Kubrick's sleek cinematography mirrors this paradox, seducing viewers with form even as it condemns it. The theory argues that Alex's collapse embodies art's dark temptation to romanticize destruction until it consumes the artist himself. Full Metal Jacket has hidden mythical layers. This theory reads Kubrick's war epic as a ritual of death and rebirth, structured like an ancient initiation myth. The boot camp is the separation phase, where recruits are stripped of identity, shaved bald, and broken down by ritual humiliation. Their chants, punishments, and synchronized drills act like ceremonial ordeals, destroying the civilian self to prepare for transformation. Private Pyle's breakdown and death mark the symbolic sacrifice that seals the passage. When Joker enters Vietnam, he steps into the liminal world beyond the threshold, where the initiate confronts death face to face. The sniper sequence becomes the final trial. Joker must kill, and in doing so, complete his initiation into the warrior archetype. His helmet, emblazoned with Born to Kill beside a peace button, fuses opposites into wholeness. By the end, Joker is the mythic survivor, reborn through violence. The Kubrick stare is a signal for character transformation or guilt. This theory claims that the iconic downward head tilt and piercing gaze that Kubrick repeats across his films is a psychological trigger. When a character locks into that stare, they're on the edge of transformation or consumed by guilt. Alex in A Clockwork Orange does it as he gives himself fully to violence. Jack Torrance does it right before descending into madness. Private Pyle in Full Metal Jacket delivers it just before his fatal break. The stare captures the moment a character recognizes something terrible inside themselves and can't turn back. The lowered brow and upward glare project both dominance and vulnerability, revealing their awareness of guilt or impending corruption. It's Kubrick's cinematic signature for inner collapse, a visual cue that the mind has shifted, the mask has dropped, and something irreversibly dark has taken hold. If you enjoyed this, I post movie content a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.